Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. This is such a great and important topic, and there's no one better than my friend and colleague, Victoria, to talk about neurodiversity today. As Lamise said, I'm with Advanced RPO, an outsourced recruiting services partner and hiring innovator. We help companies meet their business objectives by delivering outcome-based recruitment solutions. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Victoria Hill, who is going to lead today's presentation on neurodiversity. Victoria?
Hello, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Lamise. So welcome, everyone. I am really excited to be here today. And so I know you all are on mute, but like Michelle suggested, I would love for you to chat with me in the chat, Q&A, so it can be engaging. You'll hear my voice for the most part. Hopefully Michelle and Lamise will add their voices as well at some point. But I'm Victoria Hill, as she mentioned. And just a little bit about me. I work for Advanced RPO. I live in Chicago. Today's a beautiful day, by the way. My pronouns are she and her. And that's all I want to tell you business-wise about me. But a fun fact about me is that I love karaoke. And so I just want to introduce you to some of my karaoke go-tos. Now, I don't know who's on the call, but if you're in my age group, you'll recognize the person that popped up on your screen. That's Pat Benatar, Love is a Battlefield. So that's my go-to. I just probably shared my age, but also anything Beyonce is worth singing in karaoke for me. So that's about me today. So you kind of get where I'm coming from as far as my personal life. All right, so now why we're here. Welcome to Understanding and Valuing Neurodiversity. So this is a topic that is really near and dear to me. So I'm happy that we're going to be on this journey together. I call it a journey because it's like we'll be traveling through some topics today. So thank you. So first, I'd like to kick it off with our first question of the day. So please utilize your chat, utilize your virtual hands when you can. And I want to find out how familiar you are with the term neurodiversity. So if you could put in the chat for me, yes, no, or not sure. So do you understand what neurodiversity is and what it entails? Yes, no, or not sure. And I can see the chat. Okay, very familiar. Yes, yes. Not sure. Yes, yes. See, not sure. Somewhat familiar. Okay, thank you, Joy. Okay. So thank you for being honest and letting me know. So when we talk about neurodiversity, so for those of you who said, yes, great, because you all are going to be able to help me teach this today. For those who are not as familiar, neurodiversity, if you think of like the root word of neural really translates to like the nervous system, like nerves, right? So that affects brain. So think of it like that. So neural translates sort of to brain. And then diversity is a term we already know, right? It means human differences. So if we put those two words together, simply put, it's brain differences, right? And so I want to play a quick video for us to kind of set the stage of what we're talking about today.
We are all different, and that's wonderful. Some differences are easy to see. Height, hairstyle, gender, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be seen. Our favorite foods, fears, or special skills. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see a duck, but some of you might have seen a rabbit. Whichever you saw, you are correct. This is just a trick drawing to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn, That's why we are all good at different things. How you feel, which is why we all feel different emotions. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way it affects the senses and how we perceive and read situations and interactions.
Stop it there. And what I love about the video is how it really talks about our brain differences, right? We all feel differently. We all see the world differently. We all interact differently in this world and in unique ways. And when I say world, I truly mean globally, right? Every employee, every person, every human being interprets the world in their own unique way. So today, we're going to have a few objectives, right? We're going to deepen our understanding of neurodiversity. So those who know it, hopefully we'll go a little bit deeper. Those who don't, hopefully we'll bring in some new terms for you today. And remember, neurodiversity are brain differences, right? So we'll recognize the differences in each of our brains, develop a wider view of normal, right? Which will help us improve communication. I know some of you are here probably to learn more about communicating with everyone, right? And so it'll help us in our development as well as our leadership style. We'll learn how to listen and engage respectfully for a more inclusive workplace. And as we become more accepting, it'll help us and our employees thrive, right? And anybody we place with clients, the more we know, the more we can have this greater communication, right? And so I want to just thank you all for even being here to hear about this topic and to be on this journey with me, because we'll develop strategies together, right? It's not just me. We're going to do this together today so that everyone, again, can thrive and process and work together. And then we'll implement supportive practices and accommodations. So we'll learn more about how we can accommodate all employees. So let's dive in. So the term neurodiversity, it refers to an infinite range of differences in the human brain. And basically, there's no standard brain. So you're going to hear me say that a lot today. And hopefully after you jump off this call, you'll be saying it as well, because we all learn and we think differently. We have different attention spans. For instance, for me to sit in a training, I'm probably always like doing something with my hands, right? I have a different attention span than some of us on this call, right? And if you agree with me that experiencing things differently is normal, I want you all to raise your virtual hands, or you can put in the chat, yes, if you agree. Thank you. Yeah, that's what normal is, right? Being different. Right? It's normal to have differences in our brains, just like we all look different, right? I can't see everybody, but just the three of us on the call that you can see, we look different. We have different fingerprints, right? And every one of us faces unique struggles in the workplace. And so it's important to understand and respect neurodiversity differences so we can start recognizing the huge benefits that our diverse brains bring to the table. So I want to play one more video for you. And this one, I watch this video all the time, and it always chokes me up. So I want you all, when you watch it with your heart as well, because you'll be smiling. You're going to laugh in a couple of places, but I want it to touch your heart. It's called Sometimes You're a Caterpillar.
In the garden, there's a caterpillar and a snail, and they're basically best friends. They hang out 24/7. They do dinner, movie nights, crafts. Oh, and they're like really into cosplay on top of like whatever else caterpillars and snails do, like eat leaves or something. Anyways, one day they're on their way to a party that's right outside the garden, and they have to go through the fence to get there. So the caterpillar goes right through, but the snail is stuck. Her shell is just too big and it won't fit under the wire. So she's like, crap, I can't get through. Maybe like, can you lift up the wire, or maybe we can build a little bridge or something? And the caterpillar's like, dude, just go under. But she can't. There's just no way that the shell is gonna fit. And the caterpillar's like, go under, come on, we're gonna be late and I'm trying to hook up with that super cute ladybug. But it's not happening. The shell will not fit under the wire. And at this point, Snail's getting kind of frustrated because it's not like she doesn't want to go to the party, but for some reason, Caterpillar just isn't getting it. Yeah, it's not that easy for me. I just can't crawl under the fence like you can, so I would really appreciate your help here. Maybe we can like go a different way, and this just like sets the Caterpillar off. What the heck? Just because I can crawl under stuff doesn't mean that I have it easy. Do you even know what it's like to have 16 feet? You don't, because finding shoes is a complete nightmare. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not saying you have it easy. I'm just saying I can't go under the fence because of my shell. That's it. I have a shell and you don't. And there's some stuff that's easier for you that's harder for me. Just like I don't know jack about finding shoes because I don't have feet. Caterpillar thinks about this for a second and realizes the snail is right. I mean, he's never had to think about shells or slimy trails, and that's a privilege that the snail has never had because she has to think about that stuff all the time. That's part of being a snail. And it's kind of like that for everyone, right? I mean, we all have our own struggles and challenges, and some of them are small, and some of them are huge and really unfair and beyond our control. And a lot of the time, it can be hard to see what someone else deals with because you've never been in their shoes or shell. I mean, like maybe you're gay or trans, have a disability or different religion, or of course the obvious one, you're a member of a different race. I don't know what it's like to be you, and you don't know what it's like to be me. So it's really important to stop and try and see the other side so we can help each other overcome those obstacles together. It's like sometimes you're the snail and sometimes you're the caterpillar. Oh yeah, okay, so then the snail and the caterpillar figured out that if they went to the other side of the garden, they could get through a little break in the fence. And while it took a little longer to get to the party, they did the trip together, which is what made it so great. So they got to the party, the caterpillar hooked up with the ladybug, snail taught everyone how to do the wobble, and the party was everything. The end. This video.
Hey, so sometimes you're a caterpillar and sometimes you're a snail. So I'd love for you all to put in chat, what are you thinking about that video? I told you to watch it with your heart. But what type of lesson did you learn from that video? Where did it touch you? Yeah, that was way cute. I agree. It was another great way to talk about this that was not workplace related. Yeah, I like it because it's an easy video, Joy, that anybody can understand, from young to old to industry to workplace to department, anywhere. We can all benefit from having more empathy. Yes, Kenrick, absolutely. Each person has their own struggles and positives. Yes, Stephanie. Accommodating differences is important, and we all have stuff. I love that, Susan. I love the stuff in quotes too, because we do, all of us, right? I hate to admit it, but I have stuff, right? You don't know what it's like to be me. I don't know what it's like to be you. Thank you, Lamise. Yes, absolutely. That's what that video is about, right? And when we think about neurodiversity, that's it. We don't know what it's like to be someone else because we're not in everyone's brain, right? We all have brain differences. And so that empathy piece is very, very important. So thank you for your comments. I want you to meet someone named John. And I usually try to look and see, hopefully there's no Johns on the call, but if it is, I'm not referring to you. Okay. So John is a wizard at data analytics. His combination of mathematical ability and software development skill is highly unusual, right? His CV features 2 master's degrees, both with honors. He has the best references from previous employers and peers in the industry. So, would you hire or place John for a position in data analytics? Just seeing what's on the screen. I know there's a lot more, but just seeing what you see on the screen. Put your answers in chat. Do you think you would hire John, knowing this, master's degrees, got good reviews, references? See, possibly. It depends. Most likely. Would interview. Yeah, you want to see what John's all about, right? Like on paper, yes. So what you see on the screen, I agree. I would probably think, let me look a little more, right, into John, because it looks good on the surface. Okay. So let's hear more about John. So John wears headphones all the time. And when people talk to him, he doesn't look right at them. He leans over every 10 minutes or so to tighten his shoelaces. He can't concentrate when they're loose. But when they're tight, John is the department's most productive employee. He's hardworking. He never wants to take breaks, although his assigned workplace buddy has finally persuaded him to do so, but he doesn't really enjoy them. So, would you still hire John? Knowing more about John. You can put that in the chat for me. Likely, yes, probably, sure. Yes, most productive. Andrea, yes. So how do you think you all, depends on the job requirements though. How do you think you all would accommodate John with his shoelace tightening? Ignore it. Does it really need to be accommodated? Good question. I don't like my shoes untied either. It's funny because in one of my other trainings, someone said, well, we can give him some slip-on shoes. And I was like, absolutely. But maybe he likes his shoelaces. That could be a coping mechanism, right? And I'm seeing in chat and the Q&A, yes. If he can fulfill the position requirements, yes. I don't think there's a need to call it out. It's just something someone does. I mean, John is the most productive employee. So bending over to tighten his shoelaces is the least of our worries, right? And I see, because neurodiversity can be invisible. You may not know he is neurodiverse. Absolutely. You may just think he is odd, right? As long as you can put him in an environment where he is comfortable and the accommodations, if any, are needed, granted, I would hire him. Okay. And someone said, well said, Joy. Thank you. See if he's comfortable letting people know about it. Yeah. So thank you all for all of these answers, because, really, again, there's no standard brain, right? So his brain is operating differently than some other people, but he's getting the job done. And sometimes as leaders, as hiring managers, whatever role you're in, sometimes we may pass on somebody because we think they're different, right, than what we think is the norm. And I put norm in quotes. And we may pass on the person. But if we just step back and think, well, let's see what the person can do. Because if they're going to be the most productive employee, that's really what I'm looking for. So we kind of have to widen our view of what we consider normal, right? So thank you all. Keep using that chat in your virtual hands. I love it. All right. So neurodiversity is often unheard of, and I'm glad that now it's getting more attention, right? Because it's often misunderstood. And so without accurate knowledge of what a group of people, are going through or what they're like, what do we do as humans? We make assumptions. Now, that's what's normal to me. Normal is making assumptions, because that's what we do all the time. So the term neurodivergent it's relatively new over the past few years. It's like coming to our attention. And that's just simply someone who thinks differently from the way the majority think, right? So it's what you see on the screen, maybe autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, right? And then neurotypical, that means the opposite, someone whose brain behaves in the same way as the majority of society. And I'm not always a fan of the word neurotypical because remember, I just told you on the last slide and the slide before that and before that, there's no standard brain, right? So, what is really normal or typical, right? I don't know if any of us feel normal all the time or can truly define normal, right? Outside of what you see on my screen is neurotypical, but we all have different abilities, right? To some extent. And keep in mind, there's no stable or universally understood concept of normal. In fact, normal perceptions and behaviors, they vary greatly depending on many, many factors, such as our culture, our location, for example. Because in some cultures, direct eye contact is expected, right? Some of us, we expect you to look us directly in our eye when you're talking to us, but other cultures is considered rude. And if you're putting things in the chat, keep doing it. I love it. So neurominority, just like the name suggests, is any group that differs from the majority, right? In behavioral traits and brain function. And then neurodiversity, that's the name of this course today, is the idea that it's normal and acceptable for people to have brains that function differently from one another. So this is a term that, like I said, we probably heard over the last few years or so, but it was actually coined a while ago. So I want you all to use the chat again and just for giggles, put in the chat for me what year you think this term was coined. Have any prizes, so you'll just get bragging rights if you come close. 2020, 1973, 1950, 2002, 1961, I'm trying 2017, trying to see who gets the bragging rights. Any others before I tell you exactly when? So the closest for bragging rights would be Sarah. It was in 1998 by a woman named Judy Singer, who was autistic herself. So, and I always mention that, sometimes we suffer in silence. And why? Because for too long, neurodiversity has been poorly understood, right? Stereotyped and even ignored. Thinking styles such as dyslexia or autism have only been characterized as deficits in the past, right? Which is why we're learning about it together and you're hearing more and more about it these upcoming years. Because on this journey, we have to deepen our understanding and it doesn't stop today. Like it has to keep on. We keep on this journey together. All right. So here's the spectrum.
Victoria, before
Yes.
I move, we've got two questions on the previous slide. The first one is, so Andrea said she heard in other training that an anxiety is sometimes referred to as a neurodiversity, and I'm probably going to talk about this next. Is that the case in your opinion?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
And the other one is neuromajority. So the other terms you had minority, but is neuromajority is also part of neurodiversity? And what does that mean exactly?
So if you think about like all these are neural and neuromajority, I would think it's not on my slides, but would be the opposite of like neurominority. So it would probably be brain, like that neural part, and the majority, which is under like neurotypical. So like the majority of our brains, and we'll Google this too afterwards because I don't have it on my screen, so I don't want to quote anything wrong. But I would think that the neural majority would be the way the majority of people think, like a neurotypical. Someone Google that and let us know what majority is if I was incorrect, because I don't want to quote anything, especially because I'm being recorded. I want you all to have the best definition. People who have the dominant, thank you, Michelle, typical expected type of brain. Yep, so it's very similar to neurotypical. That the majority of humans have, neither good nor bad. I think I was correct. Thank you, Michelle, for fact checking. Thank you. Please continue your questions in the chat because this is great. I told you we're on this journey together, right? And we need to know the terms. We have to understand them so that, because all of us work with people, right? And we're never probably not going to work with people, live with people, go to school with people. So we need to understand these terms and how they show up, right? So great questions. All right, so here's the spectrum of neurodiversity, which gets to that anxiety. I think that's on my slide. There it is in pink. Anxiety is on there for the question that came up. And you're probably familiar with some of the other neurological ones that you see on the screen, like depression, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, Down syndrome, bipolar, OCD, Tourette's. Those are familiar to us, right? And they're all different, but there's one similarity. They affect some, but not all thinking skills. So understanding that neurodiversity means recognizing and respecting these differences in our brains, just like we notice the differences in our hair or our eye color or our skin color, but we respect each other equally, right? So we just have to understand that neurodiversity can bring huge benefits, to our workplaces, because you want those differences to show up. And just a fun fact for you to take back, among adults, they say dyslexia is the most common type of neurodiversity, followed by ADHD. Angie, I'm going to answer your question too. You said, I'm surprised to see gifted. I never thought of this as an aspect, but it makes sense with the definition. Yeah, so gifted, think about, now I'm trying to recall movies in my mind. Think about, has anybody seen, is it called Rain Man? Does anybody know that movie? I see Lamise and Michelle. Okay, Sarah, thank you. Rain Man, or more recently, there's a show on TV. I want to say it's called Doctors, but that probably isn't it, where there's a doctor that's gifted. He's on the spectrum. Is it House? House is one. Yes. Where the person is, because I would like to say I'm gifted, but this definition means like the term unusual, the good doctor. Thank you, Karen. The good doctor, where someone has like beyond gifted, a gifted brain, like thinking that most neurotypical people don't have, right? Like understanding things that we couldn't understand ever in our lifetime, remembering numbers, remembering calculations, remembering people, just a brain that seems like it's out of this world. That's kind of how I would describe gifted, or those movies like Good Doctor, Rain Man, House, where they are exceptional, right? And a lot of us would think that we're there, right? We're exceptional, we're gifted, but this is even beyond what we can think and remember. That's what gifted would be described as. So I say those movies just so we can kind of understand what it looks like when we see gifted. Any other questions or comments? I'm checking the chat, and Lamise and Michelle will tell me if there's others.
You're doing great, Victoria.
Okay, good, perfect. So I'd like to pose another question. We'll have a poll for you. Now that you all have seen like that neurodiversity spectrum, and everything that was on there, and there's more, but that's what what I wanted to show you today. So how common is neurodivergence in your opinion? So, okay, you all are doing the poll, thank you. Seeing the answers pop in.
So I'm gonna close. I think we have good idea about the response, and this is, what do you think of this, Victoria? Is this what you expected?
It really is what I expected. Right, it is what I expected. So I see 25% is the, majority of you all said that. 1%, nobody answered 1%, 15%, a lot lower, and then 72%. So yeah, so that's what I'm used to seeing. I'll say that. Okay, so we'll stop sharing, and I want to show you the actual answer. And Kendrick, I saw your answer in chat as well. Okay, so the actual answer is about to pop up on your screen. So about 1 in 7. So Kendrick and others who said 15%, there was only 2 or 3 of you. You all get that prize. So studies have shown about 1 in 7, about 15% of people worldwide are thought to be neurodiverse or neurodivergent. But let's think about that for a second. So how many people are on the call today? So it's about 21 of us on the call. So that would mean, if these numbers are correct, about 3 of us on this call would fall into that category, right? Neurodivergent. I would argue, though, that the numbers are probably a lot higher than 15%. Why? Because people suffer in silence, right? People don't always share. Yep, Joy, I suspect that the more that neurodiverse is accepted, more people would accept that they are neurodivergent. Absolutely. Yes, definitely. And you saw everything that was on. I'm just going to take it back so you all can see it again. You saw everything that was listed there, right? Depression, anxiety, like everything you see on that spectrum, I would definitely suggest those numbers are higher. The majority of people I know fit in neurodivergent. Stephanie, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So I would argue it's higher. So I'm going to go with, what they say their pollings are, but I'm going to argue against it by saying people are maybe misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, don't raise their hand to share because there's stigmas attached to it. So thank you all for that. I want you to meet someone else. Her name is Cynthia. Cynthia is a neurodiverse woman with ADHD. She's part of our internal project team. During team meetings, she struggles to keep up with the fast-paced discussions and frequently gets overwhelmed by the noise and multiple conversations happening simultaneously. As a result, she sometimes finds it difficult to actively participate in the discussions, leading others to perceive her as disengaged or uninterested. Okay. I want to show you some support for Cynthia because maybe you all have experienced someone like Cynthia on your teams, on calls, somebody that you're interviewing, somebody that you're placing. And again, what do we do as humans? We make assumptions. Oh, she's not interested. She's disengaged. No, we need to have support for Cynthia. So let's see how we can support her with some of her communication challenges. So Cynthia communicates her needs to her manager and team members, explaining her challenges with sensory overload and the need for clear communication. This is key, you all. Cynthia has to communicate with her leader. I spoke with someone yesterday about a situation, and if someone doesn't tell you, if an employee doesn't share with you their neurodiversity, don't assume, right? We want to create a comfortable environment so that someone like Cynthia is willing to share. Now that Cynthia has shared, now the manager and team members can accommodate, right? Her sensory overload. So the team adjusts, They're meeting formats to ensure a more structured and inclusive discussion, providing agendas. That's key. Get some agendas out there. That helps everybody, not just Cynthia, that helps everybody. And allowing individuals to take turns speaking. Because if you have sensory overload, then you want to make sure there's not a lot of sounds, lights, things happening. I know we're in a Zoom world. Some of you are in an office, some of you are on Zoom, like my organization. But there's things that, if you have sensory overload, affect you. And a lot of it is noise, lights, sounds, right? So if everyone just speaks one at a time, then we're fine, right? So Cynthia's manager also arranges for her to have a quiet workspace or headphones to minimize distractions during focus work. Again, there's no standard brain, right? So it doesn't take away from the business to allow Cynthia to have on headphones. Okay, I see a question came in. Can you discuss how to address neurodiversity when the employee hasn't shared their concerns, but you can see the potential need? Yes, there's an assumption here. Okay, thank you for that question. So I would suggest the communication is probably the best part of understanding people. And so if the person doesn't share with you, we do make assumptions in our head because we're normal. Do not share those assumptions with the person. We don't ever want to label anyone. You know what? You're not doing your work. And do you have ADHD? Are you suffering with some depression that I don't know about? Could it be anxiety? What's going on with you? That's not the way. So don't ever label anyone. But I would say you have to build relationships. I was on a call with someone and they said that they heard their leaders talking about people and calling them strange, different names. And so this person said, I never wanted to speak up and share my neurodiversity because I hear the managers the way they talk about other people. Right. And so their culture, their environment was not conducive to speaking up. So this person said, I'm never going to share. Eventually, they went to another company and shared with their new manager. So as leaders, as recruiters, as whatever position you're in, it could be any position, you have to create an environment for communication. You have to create a safe space so that people are willing to share. Trainings. When you have trainings like this, when I did this training in my organization, people started sharing things I didn't even believe they would say, like in a group setting, but they felt comfortable because we create a culture that people feel comfortable. And that's what leaders have to do. So if no one shares it with you, you have to start creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing. You can have a training on neurodiversity. You can have an open conversation saying, I really would love to hear from the employees and any struggles they have. How can I, as the leader, help you be successful in your role? That can help people share and say, well, leader, I really probably need an accommodation. I'm so glad that you said you're willing to help. Like, as leaders, we have to set the stage to create that culture of openness. I hope I answered the question. I probably talked too long on it, but if anyone else wants to share, if I answered your question or didn't, let me know and I'll get back to it. But create that culture where people feel comfortable sharing. Okay. All right, so I'm keeping my eye on chat. So if I need to answer something, I certainly will stop and answer. You all will get the recording afterwards as well. And you can always reach out to me anytime for questions. All right, I'm just going to quickly share a few famous people who also are on the neurodiversity spectrum that you may or may not know. But one of them is Simone Biles, who is an American gymnast. She has more than this now because of this year, but she did boast, I should say, over 30 Olympic and World Championship medals. She was diagnosed with ADHD. She's not ashamed of it. So now she shares more about it so other people can feel comfortable sharing as well. And, as leaders too, recruiters, managers, employees, whoever's on the call, I find that if I share things about myself, if I'm humble and I share with people, oh, you know what? I have X, or you know what? I struggle with X. I feel like people share back with me. Like I create that space where people feel comfortable, but I start with myself first. Like, I have some things that I'm struggling with as well, so that people can say, yeah, you know what? I do too. Great. How can we then work together like the caterpillar and the snail? Because sometimes we get angry, be honest. If someone doesn't do what we want them to do, our first instinct, like that caterpillar, is say, wait a minute, just do it, just go under. But then we have to step back and say, maybe the person can't. So let's figure out a way that we can get to where we need to get to successfully together. All right, let me look in chat. There's so much to be said for the importance and widespread impact when a culture of safety is created. Absolutely. You have to create those safe spaces. If employees don't feel safe, they won't share. So, we on this call have to make sure our environments where we work, our clients, anybody we work with, we have to make sure they create those safe spaces for everyone. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with training, communication, talking, having safe conversations, open conversations. Right. So Jennifer Aniston, she's one of the highest paid actresses, as you all know, and she struggles with dyslexia. And she shared it in an interview. And I'm going to quickly go through the rest of these celebrities so we can get to some solutions. Billie Eilish, you all probably know, famous for her music and her soundtracks. She has tics, so she has Tourette's, and she was kind of outed by some people on YouTube, and so now she tries to suppress her tics, but she's comfortable talking about it now after she was outed, but she has Tourette's. And then this last person, do you all know who this is? Put it in chat if you do. No one ever knows who this is. I think again, you have to probably be in my age group to know and appreciate who this is. I don't see anybody putting it in the chat. This is Dan Aykroyd. And this is how Dan Aykroyd looks now. We're used to Dan Aykroyd and like Ghostbusters and the Blues Brothers, but he was diagnosed with a form of autism in his 50s. And so sometimes people are diagnosed later in life, which is why they're not on that poll that I showed you that said 15%, because they're not diagnosed until later on. They find out, okay, I've known something all these years, but I didn't know what to call it. And he found out it was autism. Right. So getting back to the spectrum, put in chat for me, now that we all have seen what's included in neurodiversity, do you know someone, including yourself, who is neurodivergent? You can say yes, no, or still not sure. I'm seeing a whole bunch of yeses now. Yep. Now that you know what it is, plenty of people. Now that you know what's included, right? And just the term neurodiversity, we may not know, but we know like a lot of these circles that are on your screen. And I want to get back to a comment before I ask this question. What are good strategies for accommodating neurodiverse people in direct customer-facing roles, sales, customer service, etc.? Yeah, that is a great question, Kenrick. I'm about to get to that in just another slide. So hold that thought and we'll get to that. And quickly show you some pictures of my best friend. I told you earlier that I love karaoke. Me and my husband love having parties in our backyard, having people over, lots of people. Well, my best friend, I want her to be with me all the time, every place, any place I go, I want her to be with me. I would invite her to things, and at the last minute, she would always cancel. And so what did my assumptions do? I started assuming maybe she doesn't like me like I like her. Maybe she doesn't like my other friends. I think she likes karaoke, but maybe she doesn't. maybe she's like all these things went through my head. And so finally, she felt comfortable enough to share with me that she has social anxiety and that she doesn't want to be around all those people. And she prefers us to be one-on-one. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've been inviting her to everything and wondering why she cancels. I'm thinking that's rude. How dare you cancel last minute? Like all these thoughts were in my head when simply she has social anxiety and just does not want to be in that environment. So I had to adjust. And now I do karaoke with other people. But what do I do with her? We spend one-on-one time together and we're still the best of friends. We love each other. And then that works for us because now we understand what each other needs. So we all have different minds, and that's beautiful. We just have to get to the point where we're comfortable creating a safe space for people to talk about it. And we need to know what triggers people. And that's why I highlighted that on your screen. What are some triggers that people just are not comfortable in? My best friend, her trigger is a lot of people being around because she suffers with social anxiety, right? One of my coworkers shared once that, you know how we have Teams or Slacks or that messenger service? It happens on the phone too, on our cell phones, where if somebody's typing, you see bubbles pop up. So my coworker shared, actually on a group call, that when they see the bubbles pop up on Teams, we use Teams, that they're like watching it, like they're staring at their Teams, wondering what's coming next. And then the bubbles go away. That's a trigger for them because now the rest of their day is ruined because they don't know what was coming on those bubbles. And they're wondering, did I do something wrong? Is someone going to call a meeting? Their mind starts making, that's a trigger for them. May not be for everybody, but that's a trigger. So we have to understand what are triggers for other people. And when they share their experience with us, when they're comfortable, then it's our duty to accommodate, right? If there's no undue hardship on the business. So I'm going to get to Kenrick's question in just a minute because there's no standard brain. So let me get to accommodations because that's like the meat of this. Here's some practical suggestions. And just like you see on your screen, the bubbles are big and small because there's accommodations that may seem big, may seem small, but to the employee, they're very important, right? Or anyone we're placing in roles. So a flexible work environment. So we can offer remote work options if we have that in our organizations. Every industry is not the same, every company, every leader, every department. So if there's no undue hardship on your business and you can offer an accommodation, why not? You may produce the most productive employees if you do. Provide quiet or sensory-friendly workspaces. If you're in customer service, to Kenrick's question, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, I'm sorry if I'm not, to your question, if someone's in a customer-facing role, you need to figure out what is the best way that we can accommodate the person. And the thing is, you have to sit and talk about it, right? You have to have a conversation, you and your employee or your coworker. How can I help you be successful is an easy question. How can I help you meet these expectations? So your expectations as a salesperson is to face, customer face, right? Client face. And so how can I help you be successful in this role? And so you talk it out, find out what are some things that you can do. Like I said, every business is different. So I don't want to give too general information, but I don't want to be specific either. Find out what do they need, have the conversation. If it's not a hardship on your business, accommodate it. If it's a hardship on the business and the expectations cannot be met, then there's another conversation you have about role specific. Maybe there's different roles that the person can work in, but you have to first have the conversation and be willing to have that empathy and listen to what's needed, right? The second thing on there is have clear and structured communication. Technology, there's different technologies, speech to text software, different technology to help people on the neurodiverse spectrum. task and role adjustments. That gets to Kenrick's question, about are there some tasks that can be, minimized, or, maybe we change some things up. Maybe someone else on the team can focus on this part of the expectation. Someone else can focus on this. You have to at least have a conversation to find out what can we do to help. Just like the John that we talked about almost an hour ago, if we have to let John tie his shoelaces, if he's still productive, why not? But you want to talk about it, right? Okay, in chat it says, what do we do if the employee does not know or is consistent on what they need? How can I get them more support on this? Oh, that's a very good question. So I found that someone who's not consistent in what they need, you have to, in writing, set specific goals and targets so that, maybe set smaller targets. 2 weeks from now, I want you to accomplish this. Then 2 weeks more, I want you to goals and targets to help people be consistent. And what is it that they're not being consistent on? Like, is it meeting deadlines, for instance? I don't know what it is, Sarah, but if it's meeting deadlines, okay, let's show you how to put things on your calendar. Let's send you to training. Like, there's things you have to look at, but I say goals and targets help most people become consistent, because you don't want to ever get to a conversation that, now we have to shift your role somehow. It happens, of course, but let's see what we can do now to help you be successful. And you ask the employee, what do you think? Include them in this, because as leaders, sometimes we want to say, you have to do it this way because I said so, right? No, we all have differences in our brains. So we all can't get there the same way, like the caterpillar and the snail. So include the employee in the conversation of, how can we help you get there? What do you think you need? Because if they feel like they're part of the conversation, then they're probably more willing to share with you what they need. Okay. So I know we're getting close to time. So the cutouts is more almost at times of a trial and error to figure it out together. Yeah, I agree, Sarah. All right. So there's no standard brain. Please remember that. Ways that you can create this culture. Again, listen to understand. I think I probably stressed that enough, that communication, listen, ask questions, create genuine relationships. When we have relationships with people, they're willing to share. If we create a culture that's standoffish, or don't tell me anything about your personal life or all this, if we create that culture, then they won't. Right? We can create a culture where people say, I don't want you talking about anything but work. Okay, then you won't ever get to the real person and what they need, right? And so every culture, every job is different, but work what works for your industry, for your role, for your department. Be patient. Don't be quick to judge. We're quick to make assumptions. Be patient. Don't do it. Be ready and willing to accommodate. Continue this conversation. Educate others. We don't only see adults in the workplace with neurodiversity. There's children. We have parents of neurodiverse children. We want them to have successful jobs too. So we have to accommodate. We have to educate. We have to foster a culture of empathy and openness. Use respectful preferred language. Don't assume. Avoid vague instructions. Explain mistakes in private. Communication is the key again. Identify gifts and strengths, and recognize that no two people are the same. All right, so I'm going to end there and turn it back over to Lamise, but we will share these slides. I know it's a lot to take in 60 minutes or less, but I will put my contact in the chat. If you have any questions, if you want to talk through anything, I'm willing, after this call, because there's a lot to unpack here. But thank you all for your engagement, listening. Lamise, let me turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. This has been wonderful. It's my first time listening to you speak, and you're so engaging, a lot of takeout to unpack. One of my takeaways I like when you said being different, whether mentally in other ways, is normal. And I feel that's a good definition of belonging as well. Being different is normal. A good way to think about it.
Absolutely. It really is.
It also has been refreshing. We speak about RPO and TA and recruiting in this platform, but this is a new topic and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Great engagement and great conversation.